Hey everybody, this is Encanti. I'm the musical half of Zebbler Encanti Experience, and I'm also an assistant professor at Berkeley Valencia as part of the Music Production Technology and Innovation Program. Today I'm going to be showing you this track that I just made with Mr. Bill. This is called Pay Attention, but it's spelt $ATTN. You can go download it on Mr. Bill's SoundCloud or on Mr. Bill's Bandcamp, and it also came out on Nest HQ just a few days ago. Today I am going to walk you through how I did the synth work in the production of this track. I did a lot of these kind of Diplo sounds. You see I kind of named them after the D. So let me solo these. That sound and my personal favorite is this one. Cool. And also, if you wanna check this out, we have these project files available on MrBillsTunes.com. You're going to be able to check out the stems, but also look at the whole session, like before and after we flattened and froze everything. Right now, this is the last version of what I had before rendering and freezing all of these into audio. So this is the raw synth work inside the plugins, and we're going to check out all the stuff that makes these talk. And wow, look at all that automation in there. Okay, so let me start off by talking about how this is mixed. I have this channel right here, and I actually have this in all of my music in the last 3 years. I put all of my main lead synths into their own group. And I do this for a couple of reasons. The first one is just to remain organized. I can just, at any point just solo all of these sounds, and hear everything inside the group. Also, it's helpful to have compression on the group rather than needing to have a different compressor on each one of the synthesizers. And I'm sure, as you hardcore Ableton heads know, there's a big problem with running sidechain on a MIDI instrument, because then you can never freeze that channel. For some reason, you can't freeze a channel with sidechain compression. Okay, and then the last reason I got everything inside of a group is this, my super special secret weapon. This is actually a trick I learned from a interview with Noisia to basically bus everything into a single isotope trash saturation plugin. So a lot of people think trash is just for distortion. Trash is one of these amazing plugins that does so much more than that. For this purpose, is kind of acting like a maximizer or a compressor. But the cool thing about trash is that as things get louder, they get brighter. Harmonics are added to the top end through the distortion. It's just a really nice way to also unite a bunch of sounds, because now all these sounds that came from different synthesizers and different sources, and they're all getting mixed together at different volume levels. Now they're all going through a single plugin that's kind of coloring all the sounds in the same way. So for me, my music is very, very dense with sound design. It's got a lot of different synths in it, and this is kind of the uniting plugin that kind of makes it all sound like it's coming out of the same robot. Anyway, what I'm doing right here is I've got some filtering, pretty standard stuff. I've got some brightening on the high end, and then almost always I go straight into tape saturation, and in this case I'm also got a little bit of delicate harmonics. It's this saturate preset collection that I find the best here. A little bit more processing, a little bit more high end on the filter too, and then some actual squashing of the dynamics in the end. All right, let's get to the synthesizers. So when I'm composing synth lines, I like to keep the thought of foreground and background in my head. Even inside of the lead track, everything in here is a lead, but there's some sounds that kind of help out the main parts. So those sounds are right here, and also these brass hits. By the way, these brass hits were made by a sound designer called Peril Eyes. I use them. They're just these samples, and I use them in a lot of things. They're really, really, you know, bouncy and cool. So I got those going, and those guys basically support. They provide kind of some rhythmic and body support to the main synths. Okay, so let's open up and check out some of these main synths. So this first one, Diplo Brass 1. By the way, all of my synth sounds are made with Zeta 2. It's a plugin made by Cakewalk. And this guy, the main trick on a lot of these talking synths is to have the Reso 3 boost filter. It's basically an all-pass filter that's got 3 resonant peaks, and it's already really resonant. You can actually see that these spikes are already up, so you don't even need to add resonance. The really cool thing about this, though, is that you can actually separate these poles, and it turns out that morphing an all-pass filter, resonant all-pass filter with separation, actually sounds a lot like a mouth. It sounds like a human voice. Let's do a little more. This probably isn't the best example, but this is a really good place to start. And, you know, I'm not doing anything that crazy also on my oscillator. Like, a lot of people love using massive, and, you know, they like the morphing wavetable, but for these sounds, they're just super normal, you know, square waves. So let me solo this. Okay, so something else I'd like to comment on about this synth is my pitch shifting in this is done with in 2 ways. The first way is with portamento. The gliding between notes is really nice, and I really like to automate my portamento, so it goes up sometimes between notes to kind of drift to the next note, but then cut really quickly to the one right after that. So, you know, get out there and automate some portamento. I really like that sound. And the other way is I've got an envelope actually tied to all of the pitches on these oscillators. So instead of using pitch bend inside the MIDI clip, I've gotten into the habit of using pitch envelope instead, because it's a lot easier to automate and play with. So as you can see, this envelope is just a gated envelope, so it's just all the way up or all the way down. And what I'm doing is I'm routing it to the pitch, and that means that when I turn up the amount, it just results in a pitch shift. So let me actually just send a note to it. And now I'm going to move this amount right here. So that's also sweet, because there's sometimes where, you know, you want to do some pitch shifting, but then, you know, if you do something like cutting down the sustain time, then not only are you shifting, but you're also kind of slightly modulating it. So I really like using envelopes along with a mount to get my pitch shifting sound down. I think that's a really cool thing I've been doing lately. Alrighty, so let me hit play. You see, that's the amount moving right there, and that's the portamento. I've also got dynamic tube on all of these synths, by the way. Dynamic tube is a very, I feel like, underused plugin inside of Ableton, because it's not so immediately noticeable. I think a lot of people put dynamic tube on something and then they're just like, oh, it didn't really distort my sound, or it didn't do what I expected, and then they end up not using it. But the subtlety of dynamic tube is really impressive. Let me actually just turn it off. It's a subtle difference, but to me, when dynamic tube is on, it just sounds a little bit more real. Right here is when it's kind of just sounds like it's coming out of Zeta like a normal instrument. It's a lot more nasally. Dynamic tube just brightens it in a really good way that doesn't like hurt my ears. I just really, really like it. And sometimes I like banging up the bias. And it starts like cracking and stuff like that. I really like that sound for just momentary sounds. I'm not doing much of it here, but sometimes that's something that I love to do. All right, going down a little bit. I do this a lot. I have Corpus. It's receiving MIDI from the same track it's in. So this is Diplo Brass 1. It's receiving MIDI in the side chain here from Diplo Brass 1. It's following the frequency, so it's following the notes. And what this is doing, let me turn up dry wet all the way. It's just a really subtle, resonant, physical model delay line. So let me turn this up. You hear it's kind of like in a membrane, kind of sounds like a tube to me. So let me mix that subtly in. So see, when this is mixed in a little bit, it kind of sounds like the synth sound has like a body. It has like some sort of resonant characteristic. When I turn off Corpus, it just becomes much flatter. I do a lot of this in my synth design. I really like obsessive control over the top end, and what I'm doing right here is really crushing the highs down to one volume, and then I'm bringing up the output so it's just one even level that I don't need to worry about. I got another Corpus that turns on just for this part. It's kind of doing the same thing. Corpus also acts as kind of a spatializer too. You'll notice Corpus a lot more if you're listening to this in headphones. Let me go over this guy now. Okay, so this is a trick that I've been doing a little bit more and more of lately. Actually, I've been doing this a lot lately. I've been using a lot of reverb with my lead sounds. But the trick is to not have so much reverb that your mix gets muddy or that it sounds really far away. So one thing that I hear a lot of artists do, I hear this is done by Troy Boy in the song After Hours. It's also done by Dioro and like all of his songs. And there's also done in that Benny Benassi song Satisfaction. The idea is to make your reverb dynamic. So make it so it cuts in and out rhythmically to help your phrase. So there's a reverb inside of Zeta. You can page over to the effects page and you got reverb right here. What I'm doing is I'm cutting up the volume level at interesting moments. So here's the automation line here. And you see it's down and then it just comes up and then cuts out. And it's a really cool sound. And it just helps to, in the stereo field, accentuate certain notes and certain parts. And I feel like that's what really makes this thing slap when the beat is just going hard and this thing's just like, you know, got that. It's kind of a big room sound, you know. It just helps it sound a little bit more epic. Love that, how it kind of jumps out of the speakers right there. Anyway, I love that sound. You'll hear that all over my music. I got, by the way, a remix coming out soon of Mr. Bill's other project, Electrocado, that has been getting a lot of support from Space Jesus and Liquid Stranger and Owl 5 on the most recent Wakan tour. And that's the main trick of the synths in that song, that I'm just cutting in and out super duper epic reverb. Okay, so let me explain the rest of this really quick. You know, I think Mr. Bill has a tutorial about kind of how he starts with one sound and then duplicates it and mutates it into another. That's kind of like what I did here. If I open up this Zeta 2 patch, you see this patch is the same patch as this Brass 1 track. So these are actually the same sounds. And all I did is I just changed a couple of the characteristics about it. It's a flatter sound, and I'm doing this reverb thing, which I wasn't doing over there. And I changed up kind of some of my settings, like on Corpus, and I just changed the sound around. And I love this technique. I love starting with one sound that you really love, and then changing it into a whole bunch of other different complementary sounds, because the timbres kind of, go together, but it still feels like you're giving some momentum to the design of the sounds in the track. So anyway, a lot of the same stuff here. Let's see what's going on with these delays. Delay level, no. Reverb dampening. Oh, this is EG2. This is my pitch bending again. And it's got the same amount for how much to pitch bend. So that's cool because I can just copy that automation from here and put it over here, and it's the exact same quantity of pitch bend. Oh my gosh, and I love using it more than the pitch bend inside the MIDI clip too, because as a lot of us producers know, if we stop the playback head like right in the middle of a pitch bend, it'll just get stuck there, and that totally sucks to deal with sometimes. Okay, let's get to this last synthesizer that I'm most excited to talk about, this guy. All right, so with this one, I really wanted to go more with the mouthy sound, and these other ones are more like, like kind of 16th note. With this guy, I wanted to like get slack and just, so I knew I had to change the sound to feel, to be able to accommodate these longer legato sort of notes. By the way, while doing sound design, always take into account how long you plan your notes are going to be. I will approach a sound completely differently if I know that these notes are going to be really, really short, like these. I'm not going to have some super long envelope on these short notes because, the notes are really short. Whereas with these guys, I kind of design the envelopes to open while these notes are playing. So let's check out some of this automation down here. So we got EG Attack 1 that's going crazy right here. Let's go check out what that's doing. So envelope 1 is going to filter 2 cutoff and filter 1 cutoff. Okay, so this envelope, this crazy looking envelope, is actually changing the cutoff of this top filter, which is a low pass. And then the signal goes out of that and flows into the second filter, which is another one of these awesome resonant all-pass filters, except this one is a Reso 2, so this only has 2 spikes instead of 3. So what I'm doing here is I'm automating, instead of like making the cutoff frequencies going crazy, in fact, it might a little bit. Yeah, so I got some automation built into there, but most of how this kind of like opens in that cool talky way is responsible for how this envelope generator is interacting with all this stuff. So there's quite a bit of automation, but let me play it back so you can kind of visualize what's going on. Yeah, that part that's like, that sound is achieved by this slowly opening envelope. In fact, let me just change this stuff up so you can kind of see what it does. A little bit different sound, a little bit. So see, this is subtle, but it's modulating these two envelopes and just kind of adding to the gradual texture of the sound. All right, what else is going on here? As you can see, more corpus, more double up on corpus. I got, what's this thing? I've got, seems like I got some sort of compression going on there. Nothing that exciting. That's pretty much it. I think this guy, does this guy got some reverb too? Oh yeah, the reverb throws in this are really good too. I'm doing the exact same thing as I was in this track, where the reverb's just coming up every now and then, except I've changed the pattern up a little bit, so you can kind of see how this reverb cuts in and out right here. Different kind of reverb too. Oh yeah, which reminds me, there's this other really cool thing that's going on here. I've got this 6-voice chorus, which makes Massive Dimension Expander, just puts it absolutely to shame. This is like the best widening chorus I've ever used in a synth. One of the main reasons I love Zeta so much. So I try not to overuse this widening, as I think a lot of producers, you're probably with me on using, Massive's Dimension Expander. You don't want to like overuse it. But I've discovered that this is a really cool sound if you just cut it in and out. So check it out. I got the level right here. When it's down, it's just completely dry. It's passive. But when the level goes up, it starts applying the widening. And that's just a really good way to make certain notes kind of jump out of your speakers a little bit in depth. So let me hit play so you can kind of watch how this rolls. Yeah. Okay, so before I wrap up, let me just backwards to the earlier part of this song, because I think that there's one or two more synths in here. Yeah, I think this synth is the last one. So this got changed and processed after we flattened it quite a bit. I think it's had some more distortion and some EQ and brightening stuff applied to it. But let's just do a really quick walkthrough of what's going on here. First of all, there's more of this reverb stuff. So this is kind of the opposite. This is like the reverb's on all the time, but every now and then I cut it out. That's just a really nice way to kind of make certain notes feel very smashed or something. Actually, when this first comes in, it's like, I think it's just following the kick drum pattern. Yeah, so it gets up to, it's all super reverb there, and then it just crushes down. It makes it sound side chained when it's not, Okay, and then for the pitch, it's the same thing here. I just got, I believe, envelope 2. Yep, EG2 is going to all OSC pitch. And this is kind of what's making it do not straight notes, kind of making the... The other reason why I like using envelopes for my pitch modulation is that you can always just bring the amount back to, like, slowly back down to 0. And it's just, it applies the envelope less and less until you can slowly come back down there. If you were to use like pitch bend, that would just take way longer, it feels like. Okie dokie. So after that, I think, what's after that? That's about it. Little decay timing. I think that must have to do with my... Oh yeah, that has to do with the pitch envelope. All right, that's all. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and that it's been enlightening for you that you new Zeta 2 users and Ableton makers and people that are trying to make cool lead synths like this. I think my parting advice for you is really try to think outside the box. Don't ever just settle for that one serum patch or that one massive patch that sounds cool. All of these sounds got a lot of layers of subtle effects on it that like Corpus. I use it on almost everything, and you can almost never completely tell it's there because it's just there for kind of some widening and some tone. Same with dynamic tube. I mean, that just really helps the sound to the realness of the tone. And especially Trash 2, I just got to give such a shout out to Isotope for making like the best saturation plugin on the planet. Anyway, keep making cool music. If you want to get the session, you can go get it at MrBillsTunes.com. Go get this track. It's called Pay Attention, but spelt $ATTN. I'm Encanti. Check me out on tour, Zebbler Encanti Experience, and we got a new website coming up soon, ZebblerEncantiExperience.com. Yo, send me any messages, or if you use any of these tricks, show me the tune that you made with it. I'd love to see something that someone put together using these tips. So anyway, take care and keep making great music.